Editors and Newspapers, written by Vinod Mehta. Few men of action have been able to make a graceful exit at the appropriate time. A quote by Malcolm Muggeridge. In the British Conservative Party, they have the men in grey suits who knock on the door of the sticking leader, hand over a bottle of wine and a revolver, all of which conveys a blunt message. Time is up, chum. Like politicians, editors too have a tendency to stick to their chairs, refusing to take hints suggesting they have outlived their sell-by date. Some of them have had to be removed literally, kicking and screaming. 1962. Back home. The Chinese invaded large parts of India and dealt a humiliating blow to our armed forces. 4 weeks later, they suddenly announced a ceasefire and offered to withdraw to lines of actual control which existed in 1959. The Defense Minister Krishna Menon was sacked. Nehru was destroyed. I had no access to Indian papers and had to rely on the British media for information, context, and insights. Most of what I read, while accusing the Chinese of blatant aggression, did not spare Nehru. Some, quite a few actually, blamed Nehru for provoking the Chinese. The Guardian was one of the UK's oldest and most respected newspapers. I embraced it at once. I was drawn to its left liberal stance and read it avidly. By the time I got to it, the paper had moved from Manchester to London. Its founder editor, C.P. Scott, had laid down the cardinal rule for journalists the world over. Comment is free, but facts are sacred. The Guardian, without doubt, was the best written daily on Fleet Street. I brushed up my vocabulary as I came across new words and phrases daily. I am afraid I have been guilty of overusing it for the past 35 years. More than the Guardian, a journal shaped my thinking. The New Statesman was founded in 1913 by Sidney and Beatrice Webb and other members of the Fabian Society. The weekly's political leanings could accurately be described as left-wing. The front of the book was decidedly true to its heritage of radical politics. The back of the book, however, was subversive in its tastes. When I first became addicted to this magazine, thanks ironically to a suggestion from an Anglican priest, it was being edited by John Freeman, who later became High Commissioner to India and had earlier created the path-breaking face-to-face TV interviews. Freeman left in 1965 and was followed by Paul Johnson, then a lefty. It was under Paul Johnson's stewardship that the magazine reached its highest circulation, that is 90,000. A joke popular in the 1960s sums up the power and influence of the journal in progressive circles. If someone asked, for instance, what value you would put on the Commonwealth, you would say, wait till Thursday. That is the day the New Statesman hit the stands. Kingsley Martin, editor for 30 years, single-handedly made the weekly essential reading. Alas, he outstayed his welcome, as C.H. Rolfe poignantly describes in his biography that Kingsley had to be literally dragged out of the editor's chair by the trustees. A lifelong friend of India and of Jawaharlal Nehru, he died at our ambassador's residence in Cairo, where he was a house guest. Now, back to India. Samir Jain of Times of India. Samir Jain, the owner of the Times of India group, needed to organize a deft operation to get his flagship's editor, Mr. Girilal Jain, to vacate the chair. Girilal, meanwhile, had a plan B, which envisaged putting his favorite Fatma Zakaria on the gaddi. The coup was mounted by Samir Jain in 1988 while Girilal Jain was out of the country. The print line on the paper was changed just as the Times of India went to press. Then there were the murky goings on at the Statesman in the late 60s, during which C.R. Irani subverted the trust headed by J.R.D. Tata to run the paper. J.R.D. told me that idiot Irani stole the paper. He had equally strong words for Nani Falkiwala, who Tata believed aided and abetted Irani and took over the Statesman. Subsequently, Irani ousted a succession of editors to grab the coveted post for himself. As I know from personal experience, the ejection of an editor can be both protracted and ugly. However, one thing is clear: even before hostilities begin, the editor always loses. Editors forget rather easily that, however huge their contribution towards creating or running or popularizing the paper, it is the proprietor who calls the shots. If he does not want you, there is precious little you can do except protest and shout freedom of the press platitudes, which mean nothing to the owner. Between the editor and the proprietor, it is always an unequal contest. Khushwant Singh at the Illustrated Weekly and the Hindustan Times left fuming, but in both cases, the proprietor's decision prevailed. M.J. Akbar found he was no longer editor-in-chief of the Asian Age on his way home late at night after putting the edition to bed. Some editors suffer from the misapprehension that if their name gets closely identified with the success of the paper, it secures for them some sort of insurance. How can the proprietor sack me when it is I who made the paper? It is a foolish delusion. The owner, in fact, is working along another track. While he is keen, the editor continues to ensure the commercial health of the publication. He is distinctly uncomfortable if the editor's continuation is seen as indispensable to the prosperity of his paper. Leave alone powerful and charismatic editors. An unresolved dispute has been raging in our country about whether we needed editors at all. There is a fable in which proprietor Shanti Prasad Jain rings up his Times of India editor to ask if they could meet. Of course, replies the editor. When are you free? Shanti Prasad answers, not when I am free. When are you free? Alas, those days are long gone. They are part of journalistic folklore. In media marketing circles, they speak of the Lord and Master of the Times of India, Samir Jain, as the Messiah. In editorial circles, he is usually referred to as Samir, the Destroyer. Samir Jain began his reign with a simple, unwavering rule. Editorial must remain subservient to marketing. The tale I am going to relate may be apocryphal, but it is much bandied about. Before Samir's father, Ashok Jain, allowed his son to take full charge of Bennett and Coleman, he thought it would be useful if his son interned under the then editor, the imperious Girilal Jain. Rumor goes that Giri treated Samir shabbily, paying him no attention as he wandered aimlessly around the corridors of the paper he owned. Samir did not forget the slight. He vowed to take revenge not just on Girilal Jain but on journalists as a community. He has kept his word. The systematic demotion, later established as a foundational principle, started when Ashok Jain retired due to poor health and Samir became vice chairman of Bennett and Coleman in 1982. In the last 3 decades, at least in his publishing house, it has been a commandment written in stone. Till the late 80s, some editors and journalists in the Times of India group thought they could challenge Samir and wrest back control and re-establish the authority of the editor. They have mostly left or were tamed. Unquestionably, the most successful media house in the country, Bennett and Coleman Limited, is presided over by Samir and his younger brother Vineet. This preeminent position has been reached without the slightest compromise to his guiding philosophy. Today, Samir's 2 flagship dailies, the Times of India and the Economic Times, have innumerable editors, but few know who they are. The papers are faceless. In Mr. Samir Jain's book, I would figure in the dissident column. I believe a publication without a recognizable and empowered single editor is an oxymoron. The arrangement I prefer was articulated by the legendary British editor Harold Evans. He maintained that the editor and the marketing chief can work together, can work as a team, as long as the editor walks a few steps ahead. Thank you very much. Now some word power. The Guardian without doubt, was the best written daily on Fleet Street. Fleet Street means a street in central London, England, which is the hub of many newspaper offices, that is, a British newspaper world. The front of the book was decidedly true to its heritage and radical politics. The back of the book, however, was subversive in its taste. Subversive, S-U-B-V-G-R-S-I-V-E. Subversive means tending to weaken or destroy an established political system, organization, or authority. Samir Jain, the owner of the Times of India group, needed to organize a deft operation to get his flagship's editor Girilal Jain to vacate the chair. Deft, D-E-F-T. Deft means skillful, clever, and quick. Editors forget rather easily that however huge their contribution towards creating or running or popularizing the paper, it is the proprietor who calls the shots. Call the shots means to be in the position of being able to make decision. If he does not want you, there is precious little you can do except protest and shout freedom of the press platitudes. Platitude, P-L-A-T-I-T-U-D-E. Platitude means a remark or statement that may be true but is boring and has no meaning because it has been said so many times before. Some editors suffer from the misapprehension that if their name gets closely identified with the success of the paper, it secures for them some sort of insurance. Misapprehension, M-I-S-A-P-P-R-E-H-E-N-S-A-O-N. Misapprehension means a failure to understand something or a belief about something that is not correct. It is a foolish delusion. Delusion, D-E-L-U-S-I-O-N. Delusion means a false belief or opinion. The owner, in fact, is working along another track. While he is keen, the editor continue to ensure the commercial health of his publication, he is distinctly uncomfortable if the editor's continuation is seen as indispensable. I-N-D-I-S-P-G-N-S-A-B-L-E. Indispensable means absolutely necessary, essential. Samir began his reign with a simple, unwavering rule. Editorial must remain subservient to marketing. Subservient, S-U-B-S-E-R-V-I-E-N-T. Subservient means prepared to obey others unquestioningly. Subservient means secondary. The tale I am going to relate may be apocryphal. Apocryphal, A-P-O-C-R-Y-P-H-A-L. Apocryphal means of a story or statement of doubtful authenticity, although widely circulated as being true. But it is much bandied about. Bandy something about means to talk about something without careful consideration. Before Samir's father, Ashok Jain, allowed his son to take full charge of Bennett and Coleman, he thought it would be useful if his son interned under the editor, the imperious Girilal Jain. Intern, I-N-T-G-R-N. Intern means a student or a recent graduate who works for a period of time at a job in order to get experience. Imperious, I-M-P-E-R-I-O-U-S. Imperious means arrogant and domineering. Samir did not forget the slight. Slight means insult. Till the late 80s, some editors and journalists in the Times of India group thought they could challenge Samir and wrest back control and re-establish the authority of the editor. Rest, W-R-E-S-T. Rest means to get something with effort or difficulty. Unquestionably, the most successful media house in the country, Bennett and Coleman Limited, is presided over by Samir and his younger brother Vineet. This preeminent position has been reached without the slightest compromise to his guiding philosophy. Preeminent, Preeminent, preeminent means more important or powerful than all others. In Mr. Samir Jain's book, I would figure in the dissident column. I believe a publication without a recognizable and empowered single editor is an oxymoron. Oxymoron. Oxymoron means a phrase or statement that seems to say two opposite things, like agree to disagree. Thank you for listening.